Can it really be, my friends? 7 days since we spoke to the mighty Van Con. It most certainly is. Time now for your Freeview film recommendations, courtesy of Van the Man and me, Paul Ross. Of course, 3 each. And you are starting, Van. Good morning, Van. I hope your week's been good. You're starting with a bit of a one that slipped under my radar. I've not seen 22 Jump Street. I remember 21 Jump Street, which helped make a star of Johnny Depp. Tell us a bit more about 22 Jump Street.
Yes, so 22 Jump Street is in the same satirical sort of spoof-like vein that the first one parodied, basically the conventions of the buddy cop genre and its own original source material. The sequel kind of goes a bit more meta with it. So the kids, you have the clearly way too old-looking cops in the first movie going undercover as high schoolers. For the sequel, you've now got them going to college. But at the same time, they're going to send up all of the conventions of action sequels entirely as they hunt the campus for a new cutting-edge dealer to the college kids. It's really funny. Did you not see the first one?
I saw the first one, but the Johnny Depp one was so emblazoned on my mind because it was around the time that my then girlfriend, soon to be second wife, absolutely fell in love with him with that, and we would watch Nightmare on Elm Street again and again because he was in that and didn't he get chewed up by the bed and spat out or something in that? So I've got very strong memories of that. The first one I thought was good, but I didn't know that the second one had even, I must confess, didn't even know there'd been a sequel to the first one.
The sequel's got so many like viral TikTok kind of moments that you can mine from it. It's very meme friendly. It adds Wyatt Russell to the cast as well and Gillian Bell, but I think the breakout star of the sequel is Ice Cube, because they get more or less everyone returning from the previous movie, bar Brie Larson, I think. But it's Ice Cube who gets a beefed up screen presence, and he really winds up stealing it. He's awesome in this.
Fantastic stuff. Okay, so it's 22 Jump Street. You've got a clip for us, I think, haven't you? When's it on, first of all, Van?
So this is tonight on ITV2 at 9 o'clock. I've got a clip for you, and this is Ice Cube's captain giving them the assignment, effectively.
Here we go.
Same identities, same assignment.
Going back to high school?
Your ass look like you're about 50. You going to MC State. Somebody's out there, they cooking up a new drug. It's Adderall mixed with ecstasy, mixed with God knows what else.
Whitey?
No, you dumb mother. Wi-Fi stands for work hard, yes, play hard, yes. Now these kids take this and they get laser focused for about 4 hours of studying, and then they party like it's goddamn 1999.
We're going to college, for real?
Why every time you speak, I want to throw the up? Infiltrate the dealer, find the supply.
Even down to the grumpy boss, the man in charge. So that does sound like funny. So that's tonight then on ITV2, 9 o'clock-ish. And my recommendation is a Clint Eastwood film. I really enjoyed this one. I saw it in this kind of understated way. It's very much, it's elegiac in tone. So it's about the end of his career movie making as well. It's on BBC One tonight, 11:25. It's called The Mule from 2018. And then he plays a retired individual, likes his gardening, and is bitterly regretful about some of the choices he made in his life. He doesn't blame anyone but himself. He's been estranged from his family. He's been a bad husband and a bad father. And he gets off on a job delivering stuff. Only the stuff happens to be stuff that, not the things that a mule in the wild would carry, but things that a mule who's a drug mule would carry in the boot of his car. But being the fact that he's acting his age, he's in his early 90s now, Clint, when he is pulled over by the police, then of course they want to help him. They don't want to even search the vehicle. When a drug-sniffing dog starts going row, row, row around the boot of his car, they think there's something wrong with the dog. Because what can a 91-year-old man be doing having anything to do with the Mexican drug cartel? It's not the perfect Clint Eastwood film. It's a good film though, I think, and it's really quite a moving film as well. And I was tempted to go for Sky documentary tonight, 8 o'clock, 8 days a week, which is worth seeing, the Beatles on the road. Oh, yeah. Instead I've gone for 11:25 tonight, BBC One, The Mule. Now a lot of it is very Clint, in that he makes a habit of taking dialogue out. A lot of it is cinematic, which is great. So I've not chosen a clip from the film. I've gone for one of the soundtrack songs. He's driving around listening to proper full-on country music. Not all this, not new country, none of that stuff. Not even Garth Brooks. Old country, like this one from Roger Miller called Langley. He was the voice, of course, in Robin Hood, the Walt Disney cartoon. He also sang some great songs. He wrote and recorded King of the Road. This was a hit in the States, but not over here. I'll give you 10 seconds of it. This will get you in the mood for a kind of country romp, and it's comedy, but gentle comedy, and dramatic at times as well. The Mule, 11:25 tonight, BBC One. Dang. familial duties have fallen by the wayside because he was boxing. They don't even go down that way. You've got no reason to suspect he's at all a fighter, but in fact he's a very moving performance, I think, by Clint Eastwood. That's my first recommendation. That's tonight, 11:25, BBC One, The Mule. Where have you gone for the second one? You've gone a bit cult on us, Van Connor.
I have. I've gone full cult movie for you. I've got 1992's Robert Zemeckis directed Death Becomes Her on ITV2 on Saturday afternoon at 10 to 3 at 2:50. And do you know, I've got such a soft spot for this one. So this is just a sort of overlooked comedy. This is kind of the last Bruce Willis vehicle before he goes off into the wilderness for a few years in the early 90s and then comes back with Die Hard with a Vengeance and Pulp Fiction. But this teams him with Goldie Hawn and Meryl Streep. And it's basically a supernatural rom-com, effectively, with a sort of dark, sinister comic edge. So the idea is you've got a plastic surgeon who finds himself in a love triangle between two former college roommates who've just gone full War of the Roses on one another over the decades until they've actually discovered a way to have immortality itself and somehow carry the feud on into eternity along the way. And it just takes absolutely incredibly bizarre, left field, macabre body horror swipes. This one's brilliant. Did you catch this one?
I did. I haven't seen this since it came out. I think I saw it, it won't mean anything to non-London listeners, on the big cinema Odeon, I think it was on Holloway Road. And I think I went to see it because what we planned to go and see it was full up and we couldn't get in there for it. And I remember at the time being bowled over, but laughing out loud at times. Some of it is very funny indeed. A lot of it's kind of gruesome about what happens as you're, the spirit may be willing and the cosmetic surgeon may be willing, but the flesh can be weak at times. So bits drop off for people every now and again. But it's but I've not seen it or even thought of it since then. But it is a bit of a cult film, this now, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, it has definitely sort of found a bit of a reappraisal in the sort of film Twitter kind of era. Definitely. And let's say it's kind of memeable as well in the sense. There's loads of, you tend to see the images of Goldie Hawn and Meryl Streep in certain frames in this movie used quite a bit online.
And it's nice to see Meryl Streep having such fun as well, isn't it? Because people forget she's a great actress, full stop, or actor, full stop, but she's also fantastic at comedy when she wants to be. And for her and Goldie Hawn together are a joy, I remember.
Yeah, absolutely. And yes, Meryl Streep, it's kind of a rare foray into comedy because that's still not really a genre she does consistently. We tend to think of her as more of a dramatic actress, but she does do comedies, obviously Devil Wears Prada and things like that. She does do comedies here and there. But this was, I think, one of the early ones for Meryl Streep. And it's a belter. She goes full Joan Collins on this. She's awesome.
Okay, you got a clip for us and you got to tell us when we can see this one then.
So this is, as I say, 2:50, 10 to 3 on Saturday afternoon on ITV. I've got a clip for you. And this is Isabella Rossellini, a sort of supernatural goddess type who is imbuing them with the secrets of how to survive and pass off the images of immortality.
I'd forgotten she was in it as well. Straight from, blimey, Blue Velvet. What a cast it's got. Here we go. Here's the clip, courtesy of Van Connor.
You must make me a promise. The secret that we share must never become public. You may continue your career for 10 years, 10 years of perfect, unchanged beauty. But at the end of that time, before people become suspicious, you have to disappear from public view forever. You can retire. You can stage your own phony death. Or, as one of my clients simply said, I want to be alone. No, she's not. Wow.
For younger listeners, that would be Greta Garbo that referred to there, of course. I want to be alone. Which I don't think he ever actually said, did she? I think she said something along, like Mae West apparently never said, come up and see me sometime. But anyway, it's a good film. It's on tomorrow afternoon and it's Death Becomes Her. I've gone for a rather obvious choice, I'm afraid. I was tempted to go with one I've recommended about 20 times already, ITV4 tomorrow night, Lucy. Great film. I mean, it's like your Hanson science fiction film, 10:35. That's got great action. Taken, though, is the film that kind of reinvented, or so they say, Liam Neeson as an action hero. And the setup's very simple. He's a divorced dad, very close to his daughter, of course he is. Still kind of carrying a torch for the ex-wife, but he's lost it because he was away from home a lot. Acquiring a very unique skill set. Basically, he's a special forces mega assassin and super spy. So when his daughter gets kidnapped by a hideous East European gang, is about to be auctioned off to the highest bidder, he goes a little bit bonkers, shall we say. So, I mean, there have been 2 sequels to this so far. The second one, I mean, as always with these, it's kind of law of diminishing returns to an extent. The first one, I still think, though, as an action film, is interesting. And I do love the kind of team. You can almost do a a prequel maybe about how the team that he gets to help him back in the States was kind of assembled in the first place, because there's a great grizzled veterans kind of sense of this, and these guys in the sunset of their career, but they've still got that, I'll say it again, unique skill set. So you better watch out if you kidnapped his daughters. I think this was pretty much universally admired and enjoyed when it came out, this one, band, I think, wasn't it? Back in 2008 now.
Yeah, absolutely. But it was a hell of a marketing campaign, because they didn't really market the action. They just marketed it all the way up to Liam Neeson's phone call. And then they just had sort of flash cuts after that. So it was a real, like, bombshell spoiler thing when the movie opened, that it was this great genre-changing action movie. Because it did have a real impact across the action industry. Things started to get a lot more physical in mainstream action, because this obviously piggybacks off the back of Bourne as well.
And if you take a step back, a lot of the kind of time jumps and the thing, what ways he follows the trail is a little bit on the ludicrous side. But when you're caught up in the action, you do not worry about that. And you realise, and there's two words in this film clinch it for me, and you're going to hear in the trailer, good luck. Here we go. It's Taken. It's on tomorrow night, 9:20 on Channel 4 from 2008. Here we go.
I don't know who you are. I don't know what you want. If you're looking for ransom, I can tell you I don't have money, but what I do have are a very particular set of skills. Skills I've acquired over a very long career. Skills that make me a nightmare for people like you. Where are they? If you let my daughter go now, that'll be the end of it.
You have a 96-hour...
What?
To never finding her.
No! But if you don't, I will look for you.
Where is she?
I will find you. And I will kill you.
Good luck.
He's going to regret saying that, is all I'm saying, folks. Spoiler alert. He's going to regret saying that in the same way that I think was it Richard Admiral Gordon Jackson's character in The Great Escape, who suddenly says good luck and he says thank you when he speaks to him in English. Never respond to good luck is what I'd say on that one. So that's my second choice. Taken, Channel 4 tomorrow night, 9:20. And finally, Stone Cold Classic on ITV4 Sunday night. We've got The Dirty Dozen at 9 o'clock from 67, followed by 5 minutes past midnight, so just into Monday morning, but I know you've cut me some slack, man. From 1971, it's Get Carter, based on a rather fine and gritty novel called Jack's Back, or Jack's Return Home, because he, basically, a gangster, hard as nails, ruthless, completely amoral. It's worried that his brother may have died because of, or effectively either been murdered or harassed to death or whatever. So he goes all the way back to Geordieland, to the northeast, even though he's now a thoroughly dyed-in-the-wool South Londoner stroke Cockney, and he uncovers a horrible, murky, early 70s world of like local government corruption, of, you know, early, really grotty, grimy, hideous blue movie scene. It's a very grim and gritty film, this. Also a very exciting film. And again, I think this, to an extent, it kind of almost took Michael Caine, not back to his roots, but it gave him a much more kind of grounded, it took him back from Hollywood, I think, if you like, because he had a fantastic career by then, but suddenly I think people were reminded, A, what a fantastic actor he was, and B, we could really make this kind of film when we put our mind to it. I think without Get Carter, there'd been no, I think, Long Good Friday, for example, or those kind of films, or even some of the, you know, Gangster Number One, those kind of later gangster films, because it's such a kind of authentic, but by the same token, there's a weird romanticism to it as well, but it's also very much a kind of a gangster film ground in reality, very unglamorous, apart from Britt Eklund, who pops up in it, and apart from some of Michael Caine's overcoats. It's also one of the things you kind of feel, this looks like it's shot in almost a documentary style, this film.
Yeah, absolutely. And say, it's an absolute game changer, because it's such a high concept British film for when it's made, that you can't imagine what the equivalent would be today. But it's very obvious that we wouldn't have things like, as you say Gangster Number One. I'd say things like Lock, Stock as well.
Yeah, of course.
You just wouldn't have filmmaking on the level of things like Danny Boyle, I don't think, were it not for things like Get Carter, because it's really high concept for, was it 1960? I forget which.
1971, I think it was. Maybe, I think it was made in
71.
Yeah, 71. And in fact, for Coronation Street fans, the man who used to run the grocery shop, now long deceased as a character, and I believe in real life, the man who played Alf Roberts, doesn't end well when he meets Michael Caine for the second time in this one. Another spoiler alert, but it is a classic, this one. It's on it's on 5 minutes past midnight after The Dirty Dozen, also worth catching if you've not seen it for a while. Oh, yeah. It's on ITV4. I'm hoping they run the uncut version. I'm pretty sure they will do. And here, my friends, from way back at the start of the decade, the dawn of the decade that fashion forgot, the 70s, Get Carter.
Some hard nuts operate up there, Jack. I smell trouble, boy. What are you going for?
To find out what happened.
Jack Carter? What you doing around here, then?
I'm visiting relatives.
Heard you've been making a nuisance of yourself.
I'd like a word with you, Jack.
What do you want to tell me? Somebody doesn't want me poking my nose into something. Who paid you to see me off? You're a big man, but you're in bad shape. With me, it's a full-time job.
Also, 3 great words of advice he utters to his niece in that. Don't trust boys, which is a great film, great line, great dialogue, great script, great direction, great performance from Michael Caine and all the others. That's my final recommendation. And for you, you've gone from the gritty, unglamorous world of the North East to the mega glamorous world of James Bond, Van Connor.
Yeah, I've got the final Daniel Craig offering on ITV2 on Sunday night at 8 p.m. No Time to Die, which was, of course, the COVID Bond. We were waiting for ages. Do you remember the suspense of waiting for No Time to Die, Paul?
And also waiting for Tenet, which is going to save cinema. And I've seen a couple of times. A fantastic thrill ride, but absolutely incomprehensible. I don't understand a third of that film, I don't think. Anyway, but this is rather different because it is a fitting adieu from Daniel Craig to playing James Bond, even though we kind of knew it was coming. I think it's delivered very well. It's a great addition to the Bond canon, this one, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And this sees Bond having gone off into the sunset at the end of I think it was Spectre before this, wasn't it? With Madeleine Swann, Léa Seydoux' Madeleine Swann, was the daughter of Mr. White, I think was the whole thing. But now he's gone off into the sunset with her, and he's brought out of retirement by Felix Leiter, when he's asked to go and rescue and protect a scientist from Cuba who might have information on Spectre. It's like I say, this is where Rami Malek, fresh off his Oscar win for Bohemian Rhapsody, comes into play as the villain for this one. You've got Ana de Armas really stealing the scene in her brief Cuba appearance, but really making an impact as an action star. Léa Seydoux returns as well, and of course you've got Lashana Lynch as the new 007. In fact, she's the subject of our clip. This is the new 007, as I say, played by Lashana Lynch, just appearing in Bond's hotel room, as women just tend to do. So you can see this on Sunday night at 8 o'clock on ITV2. I think it's a pretty decent farewell to Mr. Craig.
Here we go then.
You seem like a man who's gagging for some action, Mr. Bond.
Shall we cut to the chase?
I'm here as a professional courtesy.
Well, you're not very courteous, are you? You've broken my car. It's Commander Bond. You know that. 00?
2 years.
Very young.
High achiever.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
The world's moved on since you retired, Commander Bond. Perhaps you didn't notice.
No, can't say I had. And in my humble opinion, the world doesn't change very much.
You would say that. Look, this all seems like heaven. This little bubble, or whatever.
I hope he finds a quantum of solace, because the world is not enough. Because you could have a whole play based around Bond titles. That's a cracking recommendation. 6 interesting films. They're all on Freeview for your consideration, friends. And tell us a bit about Off-Screen, because you're back on, I think, this morning from 8. Is that right? A new edition of Off-Screen, your podcast?
That is right. We're back on podcast platforms, the Off-Screen show from 8 a.m. And this week, we get to talk about one of my fave horror movies for quite some time. Cobweb is finally out this week, so I get to talk about that. That is really worth seeing if you like a good old school chiller.
Hang on. Can I interrupt you? I think I'm hearing knocking in the walls. It couldn't be giant spiders, could it, or something? Anyway,
exactly
no more spoilers. And have you seen the new Equalizer film?
Do you know I haven't had the pleasure yet? They had like one press show and I couldn't get down for it. So no, I'm gonna be going today and seeing the Threequalizer, as I wish they'd called it.
We get your verdict on that next week as well, very briefly on the show. But we've had 3 recommendations from Van, 3 from me. Enjoy yourselves over the weekend. Keep it true to talkSPORT or Talk TV, and we're live till 5. Cheers, Van.